Friends, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for making time to join us this evening. It's really our pleasure to have you here. My name is Mutlokwe Tobejani. I'm the host of this initiative called Online Bootcamp with Mutlokwe. This is our second edition. Our focus is really to try to democratize digital skills and knowledge among our own people. just to contribute to see that we close the digital gap. And as most of us may know, I think going forward, the present and the future really depends on the digital. Hence, we thought it's very key for us to call upon experts in the industry to come and share with us what they know about the digital elements. As today, we'll be talking about cybersecurity. And in the previous session, we talked about various areas like cloud computing and software development. And of course, in future, we're going to have other things relating to data science and other elements. For those who may have missed previous sessions, they can go to YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. It's also just called Online Bootcamp with Mutlokwe. Colleagues can go there to view and listen up our previous recordings and our sessions. So today, ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to have a guru in the industry in the form of Esau Choma, who is a senior manager information security assurance in one of the big telco companies in the country. So we are delighted to have him here. He will be presenting issues relating to cybersecurity. In particular, he will lean towards the awareness element. So without wasting of any time, I would like to welcome Mr. Choma to the podium so that he can proceed with his presentation. Mr. Choma, over to you. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, you just reminded me of way back, Mr. Mutlokwe there, when I first learned about the meaning of the word guru was when I was doing my final year at varsity, and we had this thing called what gurus, and I thought, what does this word mean? So I had to Google it. So, but anyway, in terms of cybersecurity, I'm not sure if there's anybody who can claim that they are gurus, because unfortunately the cybersecurity landscape emerges almost every day. So we keep learning every day, and these guys most of the time are actually always a step ahead of us. So by these guys, I mean the cyber criminals. So without wasting time, I just want to start by mentioning that last year around the same time, we actually did the same presentation, but we mostly focused on cybersecurity as a profession. And then we went through the details of what the profession entails and what one needs to do to get into this profession. I know that the matriculants are now writing their examinations. I'm hoping that some of you guys will consider then pursuing a career in cybersecurity, because we definitely need manpower. In fact, we most definitely need women power. So I'll encourage our ladies to also consider a career in cybersecurity, because unfortunately we are also globally having a problem of skills within the space. So, but we are hoping that with initiatives like this that Mr. Mutlokwe is conducting every year, we are able to share a little that we can to assist our brothers and sisters in making informed decisions in future, right? So, having said that, today I'm not going to focus much on cybersecurity as a profession. Rather, I'm going to focus on cybersecurity for me and you as an ordinary person. So this is because, as we have seen, some of you who following news, there has been a sharp increase in terms of cyber attacks globally and within our country. And some of those attacks are also even affecting individuals. There's a lot of increase in online fraud. Our fellow brothers and sisters are falling victims to online scams, to online fraudsters. And we felt that it will be maybe beneficial that today's section we focus mainly on individuals instead of cybersecurity as a profession. I hope that's okay with everyone. So I'm happy to take any questions that are related to cybersecurity as a profession. But like I said, then I'll be focusing on more the individual part of cybersecurity. Right. So the mentioning that Mr. Mhlokwe said that I'll be focusing on awareness. There is a reason why we want to focus on awareness. And one of those reasons is I was reading a report by IT Web and Know Before recently, where they interviewed about 378 organizations within South Africa, asking them about their experience of ransomware attacks. And in that survey, 27% of the respondents actually mentioned that the cause of their ransomware attack started with social engineering. And then I'll expand on that. And the reason I'm taking this approach to look at culture is because this is what actually affects, and this is what we've observed, that a lot of people who fall victims to social engineering and other type of attacks, it's rooted in the attitude that they have towards cybersecurity. And here I tried to divide some of the behavior that we're picking up into the behavior that some of these guys are actually showing at home, and some of this that they are showing at work. So most of the famous one at work, it's most of the guys that are, for example, not in security, they always say security is not my job. So the security guys must do their job. And then most of the time, some of them will say, I expect all the IT systems, or I expect IT to put systems to block all these attacks. So it's not my job to be looking and searching for attacks. IT must just build systems that will help me detect and block these attacks. That is correct. We are trying, but there is a human element that the attackers are exploiting, that in some cases, no technical controls can fix. And then there is attempts to improve some of the technical capabilities, looking at technologies and some AI and machine learning capabilities. However, that is not going to completely close the loop. So there's always going to be that weakest link, which is the person themselves. And then one of the other famous ones is I don't care. All I care about is my salary. And these are some of the people that are actually not aware that a cyber attack can actually close down a company such that you don't even have that salary. So some cyber attacks are so severe that they can put a company out of business. And then some of them, for example, the others we look at, people are always saying these security people are wasting my time. So if you're asking somebody, man, you can't have Bobby my dog as your password, you need to have a complex password, then they feel like, no, these things are actually wasting my time. Some of the things that they will always, for example, say is that I don't care. I don't have to be teaching my family about cybersecurity, which is the biggest mistake. Some of them will say, but I'm too broke to be targeted by cybersecurity criminals or security criminals, cyber criminals, sorry. And then others will say, no, they even if they get hold of my personal information, what will they do if they get hold of my copy of my ID and maybe my address? Why should I worry? What will they do with that information? And that is what contributes towards negative culture that we are trying to change, to say people, cybersecurity and cyber attacks are now a reality. Our lives relies mostly on electronic devices, and more every day there is attacks that are actually targeted at us. The pandemic, for example, forced a lot of digital transformation activities, and a lot of people, even people who actually never thought in their entire life that they will buy something online, they will order something from Takealot or from Amazon. They've actually been forced by circumstances to do that. So our lives are more and more online, and you can no longer afford to ignore security, both as an employee as well as an individual. And for the sake of your family, you also need to take that responsibility to make sure that your family is also properly educated and is aware of all the dangers of cybersecurity or cyber attacks and cyber criminals. So having said that, this negative attitude that we're trying to alleviate, to eliminate, will result with a number of unfortunate situations. So starting from the left, that will be for your work environment. So ransomware attacks, malware attacks, ransomware attacks, maybe just a brief explanation. I always try to tell people when I talk about ransomware attacks, picture how kidnapping and extortion works. So ransomware is basically the same as how people will kidnap, let's say, your child, a child of a rich person, and then demand a certain amount for them to release that person securely. So it's the same analogy, where ransomware attacks are actually, the attackers will take your information ransom, meaning they'll take your information away from you, and for them to release that information back to you, you will have to pay a certain amount, and then they will have locked away that information, and if you pay them a certain amount, then they can release that information. So malware, it's a typical viruses as we know them. Also, they are still unfortunately very prevalent, and then some of them are actually having capabilities of bringing down entire services for companies. Distributed denial of service attacks. These are a type of attacks where, for example, attackers will send, let's say, millions and millions of transactions towards a certain IT resource, the intention being to overwhelm that IT service, so that it will run out of resources to process any requests, and then there is an issue of service availability there. So those have been very prevalent. I think in South Africa in the past years, several ISPs have suffered distributed denial of service attacks. And then insider threat is mainly employees in the organizations. So you are going to have employees that are careless. Some of them will share passwords with the wrong people. You're going to have employees that are disgruntled. Some of them are actually going to plan to head the organization on purpose. And that is why you require very strong controls within your organizations to deal with insider threat. So you need strong access management processes, you need strong privilege management processes, and most importantly, you need effective monitoring and assurance capabilities to ensure that all actions of your SMEs and administrators are well monitored. And then data leak or data theft, this is the main one. And the reason it becomes the main one is because of some of the regulations like the POPIA, where if companies are breached and they lose customer information under the POPIA Act, which became effective in July, they may be liable for fines by the information regulator. So, and companies are actually obligated to make sure that they put effective and necessary controls to protect customers' personal information. And that goes to tell you that even those people who are still having the attitude that if they have my ID, they cannot do anything with my ID. The fact that even government or governments across the globe have taken a stance to have regulations that are forcing organizations to make sure that they protect people's privacy shows you that this is a serious matter. And then the last one, there being third-party breach. So with third-party breach is you can have all these fancy controls within your environments protected, but you're having situations where some of your systems are communicating with other external parties. And then those external parties, if you are not managing your third-party risk effectively, you might find that the external party that is having connection into your network and your systems doesn't take security very serious, and then they get breached. And through that breach, either they compromise your systems or the information that you might have shared with that third party as part of your business engagement will be compromised. And under the commitments of Popaya, for example, if it's customer information, even if it was lost under the care of a third party, you will still be liable or accountable if you are the one who shared that information with the third party. Obviously, that will be depending on the provisions of the Popaya as well, in terms of sharing of information with third parties. All right. So the more personal stuff that is also happening at home, and I want people to start thinking about these examples. So these things are happening more and more. I'm sure even if it's not you, you know about somebody who experienced this. So for example, banking fraud is actually on the rise, where a lot of people, so for example, there is also fraud where your SIM card might somehow be fraudulently swapped without your knowledge, and then for the purpose of doing fraudulent transactions on your online accounts that would have been compromised at the time. So every time you see your phone not connecting to the network in a funny way, and then perhaps you even put the SIM card in another phone and it still doesn't connect, please be alert. Please also just then immediately verify or check with your banks, and perhaps even consider blocking your accounts for some time, because these things are unfortunately happening more and more. So online fraud is also happening more and more. People are buying things from bogus online stores, and then they lose money, and then in some cases they also lose their credit card information to those bogus online stores, and that is a very growing trend, unfortunately, that people need to watch out for. Extortions is another form. So with extortions, I'll actually expand on extortions I think later on in some slides where I'm giving you examples. And then cyberbullying. People will start asking themselves, what does cyberbullying has to do with cybersecurity, and what does human trafficking has to do with cybersecurity? These things are actually in a way tied. So for example, in terms of the type of information that you share online might be exposing you and your family to some of these human traffickers. And also, if you, for example, do not teach your kids how to, and the dangers of cyber criminals, and the dangers of social media, and how to behave while they are on social media, they'll start communicating with these guys. And some of these guys are very much smart. They are convincing. They can be chatting with your kid while you are unaware. They can convince your kid to go and meet them somewhere. And then the next thing you know, you can't find your kid anyway. So this is very, very important. So people are very much excited about things like Like now, for example, the kids were getting awards. You posting, you are happy there, a happy mom. My kid got so many awards. You posting that certificate there. That certificate has the full names of your kids, sometimes even the grades that she's doing, and then the name of the school. And these are some of the information that might be putting your family in danger while you are not aware. So limiting the number of information or the amount of information you share about yourself online. You even, for example, check in when you get to their school, you check in when you get home. So the attackers have everything about you. You check in when you get to work. So they know where you work, they know where you stay, they know where your kids go to school. They perhaps even know where you eat meals. So if you go for movies, you check in. Oh, I'm at Forest Hill Mall watching movies. So all these things that we do on social media, we sometimes forget that they might be posing serious threats to the security of our families and cyberbullying as well. If you train your kids properly, because sometimes cyberbullying can also, for example, result in the type of information that people share on social media. So, for example, your kid shares a very, let's say, a compromised picture of themselves on social media, and then because of that, then they start being bullied. So those are the type of things that as individuals we need to take responsibility. We need to train our kids, we need to train our families, so that at least they are better prepared and understand what is happening online, and so that they can be better positioned to deal with that when it's happening to them. And then obviously data loss as well. So I won't talk much on data loss because I've already mentioned it on the work side. It's more or less the same on the home side, because you need to you can also lose some of your information, considering that most of the information we're now storing electronically. Sorry. So some of the usual suspects that are making these cyber criminals succeed in their malicious activities. The main one, as I mentioned, is social engineering, outdated softwares. So in terms of outdated softwares, so some of you guys are actually guilty of this, where Samsung or Android releases a patch or an update, and then you look at it and then it requires 1 gig, and you say, hell no, I'm not gonna run this update. It's gonna take my entire 1 gig. Unfortunately, those updates are very, very important. They are actually meant to, apart from increasing and improving some functionalities of your devices, there's always fixes there that are meant to fix some of the security loopholes that gets discovered in these electronic devices. So updating your softwares is always important. Weak or no controls, that is always important as well. So you find that that Bobby123 password, it's one of the weak controls. And then vulnerable systems. So for example, some of you will be installing malicious softwares unaware on your systems, and some of those malicious softwares can actually cause problems for you. And then some of you, your devices would not obviously be updated or will be too old to be updated, and so forth. And that might be a contributor to the success of the attackers. And then lastly, human error. So human error can probably be error as in a mistake, but sometimes it's also intentional, where some of the humans can make colossal mistakes that might cause them harm from the cyber attackers. All right, moving on.
There was a question here. I'm not sure whether you can accommodate it now or not.
Okay. I think maybe if they need to stay on the slide. So can we get the question?
Yeah, but they were saying, what is the difference between cybersecurity and penetration testing? Are cybersecurity specialists hackers of some sort? This question comes from some Tyrian, yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for the question. So cybersecurity is actually a profession where your main job is to protect information assets against the cyber criminals, right? And then one of the ways to protect those assets is once you put all the controls in place that are meant to protect against these cyber criminals, you also need to test whether those controls are effective. And that is where penetration testers comes in. What penetration testers do is they will behave like attackers. So you'll put all your controls in place to say, I'm now protecting my network, I'm protecting my systems. I put all the firewalls, I put all the anti-malwares and EDRs and stuff. And then now the pen testers will come in and try to break those controls that you put in place. They will try to break into your systems using the methods that normally even the cyber attackers use. Right. So I hope that explains it. So there's a concept of penetration testing or red team exercises, and then there's a concept of vulnerability management. So vulnerability management is mostly where the cyber security guys try to identify all those loopholes that exist within their environment, within their systems, and then patch them or fix them. And then once they fix them, normally then that's where the work of penetration testers comes in. They will come in and try to break the walls that you put to protect your information assets. Does that cover the question?
Yeah, I think so. But I wanted just to check, when we still talk about hackers, what is ethical hackers?
Yeah. So if you allow me, can I explain that in the next slide?
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. Cool. So these guys, the so-called hackers, there is a myth. I actually saw one of the guys that we were chatting before we started. He was actually wearing like a hacker. I wanted to tell him, geez, you're actually wearing like how people think hackers wear, with a hoodie and stuff. But this is how most people perceive what they always just refer to as hackers, meaning these cyber criminals. But in recent days, it's no longer as in the past, where a hacker is somebody who with these super skills and with these super computers, wearing a hoodie and sitting in some dark place. Things have changed, things have emerged. Cyber attacks are now as easy as you can actually get tools off the shelf. You can buy attacks that you can launch against your targeted companies or systems. You can buy those attacks from the dark web. You can actually even get trained or even get manuals on how to launch those attacks. So that is how complicated the lives of cybersecurity professionals is becoming every day. So it's no longer about dealing with actual cybersecurity criminals, but even ordinary people that perhaps, let's say, they are disgruntled in one way or another, can just go and buy a ransomware attack and launch it against your systems. So that is the problem that we're sitting with today. And one of the other challenges that we're sitting with today is that the attacks are becoming more and more intelligent, and they can easily bypass some of the traditional controls, like your traditional anti-malware that is perhaps signature-based. They are crafting their attacks in a way that some of them are actually able to bypass or go undetected into your systems. And that is why the cybersecurity space also has to evolve in introducing some of these concepts like machine learning, behavior analysis, AI type skills, where it will help supplement the traditional signature-based detections to try and deal with some of those more complex attacks that would have typically bypassed your traditional controls. And these attackers, some of them which are not even technical attackers, they are so good that they will even make a conversation with you. They can even make friends with you so that eventually they get what they want, which is some information from you, or perhaps convince you to execute a certain malicious action. So they are getting more and more complex. So here I'm just highlighting some of these, the types of what we refer to as threat actors. So basically the types of these hackers, if you can call it that. There is state-sponsored criminals that will be attacking, perhaps sometimes even spying on other countries and staff and organizations. And these people are well resourced. They mostly well resourced because they even have some form of funding. That is one category of the so-called hackers in inverted commas. And then we have the actual cyber criminals that all they want to do is make money. So they do it in different ways. Some of them will use ransomware attacks. Some of them will, for example, do online fraud and stuff. And some of them will actually use social engineering. Simple approaches like somebody hijacking someone's Facebook account and then asking all the friends for money. So they hijack Motlogwe's Facebook account, and then they'll inbox everyone on Motlogwe's list to say, hey, I'm stuck here and I don't have my phone, and then blah, blah, blah. Please, I need 300 Rand. Please send it to this Capitec number, or please send an e-wallet to this number. Those are very, very prevalent these days. I'm sure some of you guys have already seen or experienced this. So, and we'll talk about some of the advices towards the end of the presentation. But these are some of the guys that are actually forming part of the cyber criminals. And then we have activist groups. These guys are the guys that perhaps hate a certain ideology, or they hate a certain politician, or they hate a certain aspect about social change, and then they will do everything to perhaps frustrate or hack the organizations that are advocating for that ideology that they are not in support of. So, for example, you have seen when COVID-19 started, there were some of these activist groups were targeting these COVID-19 research companies. So this is typically how the activist groups will work. So for example, if there is a campaign, a political campaign, and they see that, what do you call, let's say a certain leader is winning the race, and then they don't like it, they can do many other things. They can maliciously distribute negative or false news about those people. They can hack into accounts and publish their secrets and so many things. This is what the activist groups does. And there's also terrorist groups that will also use cybersecurity attacks to institute their terrorist activities. These terrorist groups are also similarly to the state-sponsored. They're mostly also very resourced because they typically will have financial sponsors, and they will have all the big guns to actually fight. And then cyber warfare is the same, probably related as terrorist groups as well. And then there is these guys, the guys who do it just for the heck of it. These are the guys that will just hack you just to prove that they can do it. And they sometimes even find inner peace in achieving that. So you'll, for example, announce that there's this new product and then it's wonderful and so forth. And then they just want to prove that they can break it. And then they'll break it just for the heck of it. They're actually not looking to make profit out of it. And they don't have other motivation other than just self-satisfaction. Unfortunately, they are there. Unfortunately, they are there. And then we have the bad apples. So the bad apples is the the internal employees that perhaps because of being disgruntled, then start planning to head your organization. So these are unfortunately also there. And as I've mentioned, that these days you can even buy these attacks off the shelf. So some of these guys can actually go into the dark web and buy these attacks and launch them against your organizations. And then lastly, the good guys. The good guys, the reason I said I will explain ethical hacking is because I wanted to talk about these guys. So these guys, there's several of them or several categories here. They are guys who, without a contract, they keep on going and hacking on organizations. And then when they find these loopholes, then they approach those organizations to say, I found these loopholes, and then I can tell you how to fix it. And then there's agreements to between the two parties on how they can create a relationship on that. And then ethical hacking is actually a hacker that has been authorized, if I can call it that. So ethical hacking is the same as a normal hacker, but this is the guy that will try and break into your systems for a positive reason, or I would say authorized in a way. So for a good cause. So and that is why most of the cybersecurity professionals will also consider some of the training around ethical hacking. There's a certificate called CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker, that most of the security professionals will also complete. So the purpose is to give you the skills on how or to make you aware of how attackers break into your system, so that you can be better positioned to then eventually protect and close all the loopholes that might be inexistent within your environments. Okay, I hope I covered the ethical hacking question. Mr. Mtlokwe, is there any other question before I move to the next slide?
No question. Thank you. Yeah, you covered it well. Thank you.
Right. All right. Apologies. Mr. Mtlokwe come from the deep places of Limpopo there. I asked him, what is this lizard called in English? He couldn't tell me, but he knows it. I also knows it in my language, but I don't know it in English. I'll Google it. I'll tell you one day. Okay. This animal, when we were kids, we used to sort of hunt them using those skid trackers. I don't know what is the English word for skid trackers. But we used those very soft ones that we would use car tire tubes, those red car tire tubes, to make the skid trackers. So they were very soft. This animal, the skin is a little bit tough. So with those skid trackers, it's very unlikely that you'll injure this animal if you hit it anywhere in the body. So the only way to actually attack this one is targeting the head. But this animal was very, very clever, or is always very clever. Every time you try to attack it, and then it goes between the rocks. I wouldn't say caves, but normally they slide themselves between the rocks. It will always make sure that it hides its head. So every time when it's between the rocks, you'll never see its head. It will give you the body and the tail and try to use the tail to wrap the body one way or another, because its tail also, if you hit it and then you cut it, in few weeks time, you will see it growing back. So that is why sometimes it uses its tail to protect itself. The reason I'm mentioning and talking about this animal is this is the same way that everybody going forward must protect their personal information. The age of saying you don't care what happens to your ID numbers are actually over. There is a lot that these cyber criminals can do with your personal information, and you need to make sure as an individual to protect your PII data at all times. All right. So, and having said that, then I want to talk about social engineering, as I've mentioned, just a theoretical explanation of what social engineering is the use of deception to manipulate individuals into disclosing confidential information or performing certain actions, mainly for the purpose of criminal or fraudulent activities, right? So this is what cyber attackers use mostly. So in addition to some of those ones that I mentioned, like vulnerable softwares and weak controls and stuff, they mainly start with social engineering. And with social engineering, they're able to sometimes get your password unaware. They are able to sometimes let you click and activate some of their attacks on your system. Many things that they can let you do unaware. And that is why it is important. And that is why I felt it's important for our guests here today to understand that they are the ones that needs to protect themselves. Nobody's gonna come and help them with this. The next thing you open your eyes, your account will be emptied, and then you won't even know what happened. And then when somebody comes and asks, you said, yeah, but yesterday I received this call. Someone was telling me that they sent an OTP PIN code to my cell phone by mistake, and that they need that OTP because they are in an emergency and blah, blah. And when I checked my phone, indeed, that OTP was there, so I gave it to them. It will be too late by that time. So you need to understand how social engineering works, and you need to understand how to protect yourself. And the only basic rule is think, and think before you click. Think, and think before you type anything, right? So always be vigilant. Unfortunately, if you don't do that, you are more likely to become a victim. So phishing is actually a more well-known type of social engineering, where these attackers will send you a message with either an embedded link that takes you to a website that looks like perhaps your banking website, so that you capture your banking details there and they steal the information, or an attachment, which that attachment is actually a weaponized document that will launch an attack on your system and take over your system, and perhaps even use your system to propagate to the rest of the computers or devices that are interconnected with your device. There's many other terms that are used for phishing. For example, the phishing that happens through SMSs is called smishing, but it uses the same analogy. The one that happens through phone calls is called phishing. There is also spear phishing, which actually I would say it refers to targeted phishing. So some of these phishing attacks, it's someone who bought a list of email addresses from some of the attackers, and they just randomly send these phishing emails to all of them and see which ones will fall victims. But targeted phishing or spear phishing, they actually identify their target and then they craft their phishing attempts to actually target that individual or profile that they're actually trying to get their hands on. Right. Now, I wanted to give some of the examples. So here I just want to explain one of the examples that I mentioned called extortions. If you look at the email on the left side, this is an email that was sent to someone, and as it reads, I'm not sure if you guys are able to read this. I'm a programmer who cracked your email account and device about half a year ago. You entered the password in one of the insecure sites you visited. I cached it, your password, blah, 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 the actual password on the moment of Craig was da, 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 or your password for this email address was this password. Of course, you can and will change your password, or already have changed it, but it doesn't matter. My software, my red software update is update it every time. Okay. Please don't try and contact me or find me. It is impossible since I send you the email from your email account. Through your email, I uploaded malicious code to your operating system. I saved all of your contacts with friends, colleagues, relatives, and complete history of visit to the internet resource. I also installed a red software on your device a long time ago, spying you. Well, it's saying spying for you. You can, most of the time, these emails will also pick up some grammar errors there. So that will always have to ring alarm bells. You are not my only victim. I usually log devices and ask for ransom, but what was struck by the size of intimate content that you every time or you very often visit. So imagine this guy is working for an organization and he knows that his organization's policy doesn't allow him to visit, let's say, porn sites with the organization's PC. By this time, that person is already panicking, thinking, oh, Jesus Christ, I might get fired for this. So I won't read the rest of it. But how this thing works, and the reason I'm laughing is I actually used the email address of...
Sorry, Choma, I think we are losing you a bit there. Maybe you can be closer to the mic.
Okay, let me try to use my laptop. Does it sound better?
Yes, let's proceed, and yeah, I'll let you know. Yeah.
Okay. For a minute there, I actually thought you wanted to tell me not to tell them that I used your email address. So I used Mr. Mutlogo's email address. There is a site called Have I Been Pawned? And I will advise any of you guys who are listening to go into this site. There is the URL https haveibeenpawned.com. And then what you do on that site, you type your email address and then you click pawned. What that site does, it has a database of almost every information that was involved in a specific cybersecurity hack. So for example, if LinkedIn was hacked in 2016 and your email address was part of the emails that were compromised and sold to attackers in what we refer to as the dark web, then your email address will be on that list. And how this extortion guys work, they buy that information from the dark web, and what they use, for example, if LinkedIn breach included the email address as well as the password, they know for a fact that most of you will use the same password for a very long time. And some of you have been using the same password for years by now. Some of you will even use the same password for multiple platforms. So when they craft their extortion emails, they'll convince you, they'll put that password there, and you will definitely immediately remember, yes, I actually used this password at some point. Then you are easily convinced by that. So that is how they work. So as you check there, we checked Mr. Mutloko's email, and then it returned that he was part of 5 different breaches. And I think 2 of those, if not 3, were related to LinkedIn, Mr. Mutloko. So what basically that means is that at that point in time, there was a list of email addresses and passwords that were shared, were sold in the dark web, and somebody bought it, and then they have a record of that. So if you change your password very often, which is why we always recommending people to change their password very often, you shouldn't have a problem. But that is how they use extortion to convince you that indeed something is dodgy, and then you start panicking, and then you start being easily deceived into making reckless decisions. All right. So the other side, which is the right top part, is an example of a phishing email. So this phishing email was purporting to be from Microsoft, and these guys are so good. So sometimes you'll be very convinced to say, indeed, this is a valid message from Microsoft. They'll be telling you about, for example, there's malicious detected activity on your account. Please log in here to confirm if it was you. But where they say log in here, so if you look at where it says click here, if you put your mouse next to that hyperlink, it will show you the actual link where that button or that particular hyperlink will take you to. And if you look at that, that has got nothing to do with Microsoft or even your company. So these are the sites that they said, and some of these things are even alive for a few hours. They will set it up for a few hours for them to run their phishing campaigns, and then it auto, or they destroy the links. So you might even find that next time you try to go to that link, it's no longer there. But what it will do is it will take you to a link that perhaps looks like a Microsoft website, and then ask you to authenticate. When you authenticate, you put in your actual Microsoft credentials there, and then in the background, these guys then are stealing your credentials, and then they're going to use it against you to attack you. So this is some of the samples that I wanted to talk about. So I actually I was planning to do some of the demos, but that's why I'm asking each of you to actually try it now. And do we have anybody who tried, and perhaps if Mutlogo, I can ask, do we have anybody who tried with their email and then they've been pawned, that they can share us with us the results? Okay. All right.
I've
Okay,
checked.
go ahead.
It's Makabo. I've checked the link. Actually, the link Mtlogo sent, there was some typo in it. Yeah, I've checked my account and I've been pawned several times.
How many times?
It's about 8.
Okay. And then do you recognize any of those companies or breaches that you're involved in? Because, for example, one of my email addresses myself was included in the deeds office hack, where a lot of South African people's information was actually hacked in that attack. But that didn't include passwords. So if you look at the list downwards, it lists all those organizations that were hacked, and it also lists at the bottom the type of information that was actually in that hack or in that data. So it will tell you if this one, it was passwords and an email address, this one, it was physical addresses, names, ID numbers, and blah, blah. Can you see those?
Yeah, I'm able to see that one of them, it's view fines. We're able to see your traffic fines.
Yes, yes, yes. Also, this was one of the ones that happened in South Africa. So this is how easy it is for these guys then to start attacking you. And these are easy things that as individuals, you need to start being aware of, and perhaps preparing yourselves. So I was telling Mutlokwe about another website, which is called Virus Total, where if you receive a certain email with an attachment and you doubt that that might be a valid email, but you're not sure, what you can do is, without clicking and activating that file, you can actually take that file, upload it on Virus Total. And what Virus Total will do, it will scan that file against a number, actually probably more than 20 different antiviruses out there. And then if any of the antiviruses detect the hash and says this is a malicious file, it will tell you. But if that file is clean or undetected, then all of them will return the results. And that might give you some idea, remembering that some of these weaponized files are becoming more and more intelligent. It might not automatically mean that if virus total cleared it, it's actually 100% clear, but it gives you some level of verification in your personal capacity to at least get to some confident level that maybe this one then I can try and open. All right. Any other person who wanna check? This gentleman was in 8 hacks. One of the advices that I need to give you is you should make sure that every time you see such hacks, you change your password. If you see that Department of Justice has been hacked and you know you've been at Department of Justice for some reasons, you know they have your information. I don't know what type of information they store there. Or maybe people who take the absent fathers for maintenance or something, they go there. But if you know for some reason that you've consulted Department of Justice and then you hear in the news that Department of Justice was hacked, the immediate thing for you to do is to change your password. Right. So, and that is that is why even organizations, one of the stats in the report that I've referred to, the IT Web and Know Before report, they refer to some statistics from Sophos that estimated that on average, some companies within South Africa, they spend around 6.7 million to recover from a ransomware attack. So this is how serious cybersecurity is, and this is why most organizations now are actually forced to make sure that they beef up security. This is why we are encouraging our matriculants as they are writing the exams to say consider a career in cybersecurity, because that career is actually here to stay. So all these new technologies that are coming in, we are anticipating, for example, that in future we'll be having drones that are doctors, that they will go around giving people medications and stuff, the self-driving cars, the fridges and stuff that will probably know that there's no milk and order milk online and stuff. So all these new technologies that are coming in, there's always going to be a need for a cybersecurity person who must then make sure that the code they use for a self-driving car, that it doesn't have loopholes such that attackers can hack into that code and wait for you while you are in Mandela Bridge and just instruct the car to turn and throw you off the road. Or the drone that is meant to come and give you chronic medication, which is configured to know that this is the dose that you need to give that patient. Attackers can actually hack into that. We have to make sure that the attackers cannot hack the code in that drone such that they can instruct the drone to come and give you overdose and kill you. So cybersecurity is always going to be in demand, in addition to some of the other professions like your data analytics and stuff. So we're still encouraging some of you guys to consider a career in cybersecurity, because we are currently battling with skills, and especially amongst the ladies. Please, ladies, come and join us. It's actually fun, and you'll learn a lot, and you'll realize the importance of information and cybersecurity once you're within the profession. Okay. All right. Any other question, Mr.
None at the moment. I think we also 1:08. We can just
I've actually just checked the time, so let me just rush through it. So I think I'm almost done here. I'm just going to touch on some of the guidelines that you guys need to consider in terms of protecting yourselves the do's and the don'ts. Starting with the do's, you need to always protect your personal information. I've already highlighted this enough. Ensure that strong authentication for your home Wi-Fi, electronic devices, and online accounts. So with online accounts, all your sensitive online accounts, you need to enable what we call multi-factor authentication. So people like Gmail, for example, they are busy rolling out MFA for all the employees. You need to make sure that your accounts are having MFA enabled, where, for example, in addition to your password, it will ask you a one-time PIN or using an authenticator app to also confirm. This is ways to make sure that even if, for example, your password was compromised, you at least still have a second layer of authentication to rely on. Ensure that your devices and anti-malwares are up to date. I've already touched on this. Always learn and teach your families about dangers of cybersecurity and how to behave on social media. I've already touched on this. Very important. Keep a secure backup of your electronic information. The approach that we use in cybersecurity is that it doesn't matter how many controls you have. At some point, you're bound to be attacked. And preparing for that bad or that unfortunate scenario, you always have to make sure you have backups that are separate and secured. In case you fall victim, for example, to a ransomware attack, you know that there is a backup that you can rely on to continue operating. Secure your online. Always only install software from reputable app stores. That is important. Some app stores or some apps are actually malicious and will install some backdoors in your devices. So it's always important to make sure that you install from reputable app stores like your Google app stores or Google Play app stores, your or Apple app stores and stuff. Okay. Always things before you click. That one I've already mentioned. Always be careful. Always check. Even if the name says Mutlogwe Hlabiro, verify the actual email address, because it might be saying Mutlogwe Hlabiro, but the actual email address, you see something different. So it's important to always double check. If it's too good to be true, it usually is. You are not going to win some 2 million lotto that you haven't played. It's as easy as that. So always be careful. It doesn't matter how broke you are, please don't fall victim to these things. Your friends inboxing you and asking for money, it's very unusual. But if it happens and you feel like you're convinced because it's coming from your friend's Facebook account, before you can do anything, pick up the call that person and verify that it's them. If they claim that their phone is off, then call a friend or call somebody, but find a way to verify, because otherwise then you will pay money to some stranger sitting somewhere you don't even know, in Africa or something. And then the don'ts, don't share your personal information on social media. It's not only personal information, like I said, checking in and stuff and all those things, information about yourself, you might be exposing yourself. Never share your authentication data. If somebody calls you and says, I'm from your bank and there's a problem with your bank, I need your banking password so that I can fix the problem, or from your IT and there's a problem with your computer, I need to fix your IT, give me your password. Never, ever, ever do that. Or that story of someone saying, I sent you an OTP by mistake. Never, ever share your credentials with anyone. Do not use public Wi-Fi to log onto your sensitive online accounts like your banking. Do not share your personal information from embedded links. So if there's a link that says click here and then it says share your details, it's always good to verify that link. And if it's claiming from being from your bank, rather type the URL of your bank directly and then log in to your account instead of using the link that is embedded, because it might be taking you to a wrong destination that will look like the actual right destination. All right. And those are some of the advices. I think I've touched all of them. Yeah, I think that marks the end of my talk, Mr. Matlokwe. I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but if we do, then I can take questions. Thank you.
Yes, please. I think if you can make some minutes for us. There's a comment and even a question from Bongani. is a pity that government does not take security. Oh, I think maybe I'll allow him or her. Okay, so Bongali, perhaps maybe you can speak to this question so that maybe you can be more interactive.
Okay. Hi guys, how are you?
Good, thanks.
New Bongani.
Yeah, my worry is that, you know, in most of these government offices, we don't find a cybersecurity official or any in all their policies. There's no policy that covers cybersecurity, so it's a challenge. How can we enforce cybersecurity awareness in government offices? Maybe if that can be done.
Yeah. Thanks for the information. So the challenge is probably not only within government. So for example, even some small organizations that do not have big pockets to invest in security resources sometimes becomes a challenge for them. So but there's different initiatives that are actually underway to try and change the status quo. I think this afternoon I was also in one of the workshops where they were launching an organization that will be looking at empowering South Africans in the area of cybersecurity. So there is multiple initiatives that are aimed to try and improve the state of information security among South Africans. But to say that something can be done specifically for government, I think the government is also already aware of the need for cybersecurity. If you remember, there's government institutions that were hacked. I think there's a blood donations agency that was hacked recently in Cape Town. There's the Department of Justice that was hacked recently. I think there are other organizations that possibly also got near misses. I think there was a hack in, is it Transnet? I think it was in Transnet. So all those things are eye openers, and then I think all these government institutions are now starting to realize that they need to take security serious. But unfortunately, it's going to be per sort of institution. There's other initiatives also to collaborate. And those collaboration forums are trying to create relationships with the government as well. And so there's the likes of Sabrik in the banking environment, and then there's the likes of Comric that is being formed in the telecommunication space. So all those organizations are trying to create relationships with government and see how they can help each other. Right. I hope that answers. I don't have, unfortunately, a direct answer on behalf of government, but I hope that provides some clarity. Thanks.
Great. There is a Mr. S. There's a hand there. You can proceed.
Yes, thank you, sir. Maybe firstly, let me just thank you guys for organizing these sessions. It's my first time to join. So I think I can say you guys are doing a great job. Your time, your data, and your passion, I really appreciate. I just want to ask, because I missed the introduction of the sessions, how are these sessions happening? Once a week, twice a week, once a month? And then how do you guys decide which topic or title you're gonna tackle? Because I think previously what I saw, it was something like data storage. Today, I think it's security. Those two things, if you can just clarify for me there. I do love what you guys are doing, and I'm interested.
Okay, Mr. Mtloko, I believe
Yes,
this
I think
one
I can take this one. I can take this one. Thank you for the compliments. Yes, indeed. So now, how it works that it should be every week. Every week, okay. Normally we started last year where we're doing every week Sundays afternoons, and even this year when we resume, we started Sundays afternoons. For this specific one, it's just that we did not manage it last weekend. We were supposed to do it last Sunday, but due to some circumstances, we did not manage to have this session. Hence, we tried to do it today. So how do we decide on the topics? We're really focusing on the topics that are more aligned to so-called fourth industrial revolution technologies, I'll say, but obviously it's more broader. So for example, I guess we already talked about cloud computing, databases, we talked about software development, and today we're talking about cybersecurity. Next week we'll talk about data science and business intelligence. And last year we talked about machine learning and things like that. So yes, so the purpose is just to say for those technologies that are really key currently even going forward, we're just trying to see how we can close the gaps relating to those type of technologies. So I'm not sure if maybe you had any other comment relating to this.
If ever maybe there are recordings, I would like to go back and check what was recorded previously, just to boost myself.
Oh yes, definitely. So I'm just sharing that. I'll share that on the chat now, the link of our previous sessions starting from last year till to date. So I think there are a couple of sessions that they might be of interest to you because we started even with Excel and other related sessions. So I'll share that on the chat now.
Thank you. I will appreciate a lot.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Another hand, the Mahabu.
Thank you, Tlhabiro. Mine is a small one. Mr. Choma, I just want to pick your brain on this one. With the use or management of passwords. I'll give an example. You have an instance where, for example, with Gmail or iCloud account, you never have to change your password or never forced to change your password. Even without, currently you don't have MFA enforced on Gmail accounts. But we have a situation where, for example, you have, when you are audited by the powers that be, you find that you are required to change your password, whatever 3 months or whatever period you have changed your password. And I have a situation whereby you have at work, you have users, for example, who say, but why do I have to use your systems? Because I have to change password so many times. And you say, I must not write my password. But I have Google and never have changed my password. So I should rather use Google or whatever iCloud, because I never have changed my password. It just works. Whereas in this instance, you're telling me I must change my password every X number of months. How do you deal with such situations?
Yeah, so it basically speaks to awareness, what you're saying. So there's always going to be a level of pushback from employees. And if you remember in my initial slide, I actually mentioned that some of those people who will say, this thing is a waste of my time. These security things, they waste my time. It speaks to that example that you just gave to say, but you are telling me this, but on my Gmail account, I haven't had to do this. Some of them will even go to an extent of saying, I've been doing things this way for the past 20 years. Né? So it unfortunately speaks or goes back to how you educate your users. And then you mentioned being audited by the powers be. Of course, your policies are going to say change your password every 3 months, but don't see that as a tick box, and don't project that to the target user as a tick box. If you project to a user that it's the policy that says so, then you will always have this negative attitude. But if you explain to them why it is important for them to change their passwords frequently, and for example, you can even use the I have been pawned example to say, look, people who have never changed their LinkedIn passwords since 2016, potentially there's criminals out there who are having their email addresses and passwords. And that is the reason why we're saying you need to frequently change your passwords. So it's more around influencing their negative attitude. And that is the approach that we need to be taking, to say we need to make them realize why it is important for them to take those necessary precautions, instead of commanding them and telling them that the policy says so. And the minute they recognize that and using good examples, then you realize how easy people turn around. I'll give you an example in terms of identity theft. Someone will say, I'm too broke, I'm not worried. I mean, nobody will do anything with my information. You're too broke for these 2 years. And then 3 years later, you find a job. Or at least you are about to find a job. And then they do a credit check on your profile. Then you discover that you're actually owing West Bank a car that you don't even know about. That is the dangers of identity theft. These guys can forge everything with that information. They can go and they can forge pay slips, they can forge bank statements, they can go and take loans on your accounts. And then later on, you discover that you are actually in trouble. Or worse, even worse. Sometimes you can even find that maybe you are married to someone that you don't even know. So that is what some of our people lack in terms of awareness, and that is what we need to try and instill in them. A typical example was brought to my attention is that a certain person who's very much moneyed he handed over his sports car to the criminals. This is how they did it. They got access to his information from one of the dealerships that he bought his supercar. Everything, the model and everything. And you know how they did it? They sent him a spoofed email. Yeah, we are from, with letterheads, fake letterheads of that dealership. We are from so-and-so. And then this Ferrari of yours, this model, we know you are having this model and stuff, and you bought it from here. We want to let you know that Ferrari is recalling this model. There's a defect in the car and it's very dangerous. We actually have to arrange a breakdown. I don't know what they call these guys. I call them breakdown. I don't know why. To come and collect your car. So please tell us which time is your most suitable time. And then he just responded, yeah, you can come. Give them the address. They come. They are wearing overalls. They even print them with the name of that dealership. He willingly handed over the keys. They put his car on top of a breakdown, and they drove away. Later on, he's waiting for his car, and then the dealership doesn't know anything about that. His car is gone. So that's how smart these guys are. And without changing the attitude of our people, we will never win the battle. If we take an approach of forcing our people to do things instead of influencing them to understand why it's important for them to be cyber aware, then we'll never win the battle. Thanks.
Great. And then V, can you speak to what you typed there? I think you wanted to give some input there.
Good evening, all. I think what I was saying is what Kemang Choma has said in terms of what Kemang Pao was asking about, or how do you convince people, because it goes back to what he said. It's compliance, it's awareness. If people don't know why they are doing things, you are bound to get the resistance. And in terms of the policies for being audited, it's in your policy. If it's in your policy to say you will change so often, yes, auditors will expect you to show evidence that it gets changed as frequent as you've mentioned in your policy. So I think what Kemang Choma was saying is the basic thing. You need to have awareness in the business to win the battle. To start with, policies will come after, but then people need to be aware, then the policies can be followed easily.
Great, thank you. Any other comments, friends? All right. Choma, any parting word from your side?
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, Mr. Mutloko, for organizing this. As the other speaker has said, this is a great initiative. We are trying to at least give some level of knowledge to some of our guys, especially the guys in the lower levels in terms of education that are still not clear on what the future holds. I always give an example about myself to say I've learned about a degree called computer science when I was at the gate of University of Limpopo about to register. And that is the degree that I've registered. So these days, there's information everywhere they can search, and then we are also available to help. And Motlokwe and this initiative is a great platform to actually keep you guys informed. And that is why today we took a decision to at least also focus on the general individual and how they can benefit from this, other than the people who are planning to pursue this as a career. And I hope it added value. And there is my email address. If anybody requires any information, you're more than welcome to drop me an email. And thank you. That's all from my side, Mtlokwe.
Okay, thanks very much, Shoma, for your time. Thank you, colleagues, for making time to join us. And please check our YouTube channel, Mutlogwe, online bootcamp with Mutlogwe, to view the previous recordings and even this one. And then, of course, if you do have suggestions, anything, please respond to the email that you received this invitation. So any suggestion, any comment, any feedback, we really appreciate it. Keep well, take care, let's wear our mask, social distance, and wash our hands frequently. God bless. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.